Well, hello. Welcome to We Are Emmanuel Online. How are you doing? Hope you're doing well. We are here live in central Brighton. Massive welcome to you if you are a regular here at Emmanuel and you've tuned in loads and loads over the last few months, or if this is your first time and you've stumbled across this link even by accident. Hope you enjoy this little time we've got together. We're a church meeting in Brighton, Shore and Hove. Usually we'll be gathering in our hundreds this morning, but right now, obviously because of lockdown, here we are online. Hope you're doing well. It's been a massive week. We have hit the 100 days of lockdown. 100 days. They're having this week a huge threshold, but obviously yesterday was a massive moment too. Lockdown measures changing. Finally restaurants are opening. Finally we can get our hair cut. But also means for me here in Brighton, I'm not on my own anymore. We have these lovely people with us. So welcome to Nay Dawson and Arnold Coloki. Nay, how are you?
Really, really good. So pleased to be here and really pleased actually to be acknowledging that change that has happened. Lockdown has definitely been a time of ups and downs. I think we can all relate to that individually in our lives. There's been businesses closing, businesses opening, children being home, children being back at school. Lockdown has felt quite lonely, and then there's time to be with our friends. And it's a really great time to just look back and see what's been going on in that time that's been something we can be proud of and things that have been positive. Certainly I'm really proud of our city, the way that we've just kind of pulled together those Thursday evenings, celebrating the NHS, thanking our key workers, was a really wonderful thing to be a part of that we know is going to be remembered, and we'll be boring our grandkids and friends with stories of that for years to come. But actually there's been so much locally going on. There's been food banks that have been so well supported. There's been greengrocers rallying up doing deliveries in their local communities. I know so many streets where they've been doing a WhatsApp group and they've actually been talking to neighbours who they probably didn't know before in reality, and it's actually been a wonderful time where they can connect, befriend, support, and it's been a really, really special time. And yet even smaller scale in our church, there's been great things happening. We've sent some of our friends off to Belfast to continue with the church plant that's happening over there. There's been babies born, they've been born safely. And even this guy over here managed to fit in a wedding 2 days before lockdown and experienced life as a newlywed. So him and Jess have had that. And they've also been carrying on to steer our student work. So Arnold, tell us about these things.
Right, so that's right, yeah, literally I got married just a few days before the lockdown. It's not what we expected at all. We had a wedding planned in the middle of April, 250 people. We had to bring it down to 20 people, but that was totally fine. You know, Jess is my best friend, and it's awesome being able to find out more of how much she's a best friend to me. So it's great being married to her. I'm not gonna lie about that. But what has been strange is the student work. So as you said, Nay, we run the student work, and our focus has always been that we're a community and we grow that. You know, we used to have 60 to 100 people coming to a service every single Sunday. And then all of this changed and we had to work out, okay, what can we do to still engage our students and still allow them to feel part of this community? And it was fun working that out together as a team. And well, we changed things up, you know, and we would pray together every single week. We're also making sure that we're communicating with each other, understanding whether they're okay, and still engaging with church and with community. It definitely has been a great journey. We didn't feel as though God was slowing down, so we didn't want to slow down either.
Really good, man, that's amazing. We've all had to just adapt so much and just moving from physical to the digital. But this was obviously a big weekend, lockdown restrictions easing, these things open. Arnold, what about you? What's the thing you've been most looking forward to opening?
Yeah, right, okay. Well, I think, firstly, I need a haircut, so I'm really looking forward to having a haircut. But I really miss my nephew. Yeah, I've been missing him so much, and I don't even think he likes me that much, but I'm still gonna hug him, I'm still gonna kiss him, I'm still gonna enjoy him, because he's the best, so soon we're gonna go see him. Yeah,
beautiful.
That's great.
Nay, what about you? Come on.
Oh, I'm set. McDonald's opened a few weeks ago, so I'm fine. I'm all good.
Good work. All right, that's good for you. Well, I think for me and Anna, we found a cool tapas place right opposite Pavilion Gardens next to Theatre Royale. I think back in January, and we were like, oh, this is amazing. We need to come here more often. So that's what I'm looking forward to going to sometime in the coming weeks. Well, if you are new to Emmanuel, we often say this, right at the centre of the Christian faith is not a bunch of religion, it's not some rules that we need to start following, but it's a person, the person of Jesus Christ. And Christianity is about getting to know this person, and he is like no other. He's so generous, so kind, so merciful. When you think he might judge you, actually he comes with grace and mercy and truth, saying the things that we need to hear. He's such a kind person. And we as Emmanuel, we exist to help people find their way back to God, find their way back to Jesus. And if you don't know anything about this Jesus, we hope this next hour you take a step closer towards the person of Jesus. And if you've been walking with Jesus for years, you and I, we both know the thing we need more than anything else today is just to see Jesus again. So we're going to take some time now to sing to this Jesus, to sing about him, sing about what he's done. He's the God who comes right into our lives, wins our hearts. So time to switch up your TV, switch up your iPad, or whenever you're listening to this. Let's sing along. Let's worship this Jesus together. Let's worship him.
Grace, you've shown me grace. You've lifted the King of Kings, the Lord of victory, ascended in the heavens undefeated, exalted on the throne, no power can overthrow. In majesty and splendor he is seated, and at his name all the earth will bow in awe, and at his name saints and angels all adore, singing holy is the Lamb upon the throne. All praise to the Lord our God. King Jesus, be lifted high above it all. You're the Almighty, you're the Almighty. Our praises, our devotion, Jesus, have it all. You're the Almighty, you are the Lord, you are the Lord of all. Behold the Son of Man, scars still on his hands, silencing the voice of condemnation. In heaven intercedes with faithfulness and zeal, redeeming and restoring all creation. And at his name all the earth will bow in awe, and at his name saints and angels all adore, singing holy is the Lamb upon the throne. All praise to the Lord our God. King Jesus, be lifted high above it all. You're the Almighty, you're the Almighty. Our praises, our devotion, Jesus, have it all. You're the Almighty, you are the Lord, you are the Lord of all. Every power must bow down, every king lay down their crown. Jesus, you are high above it all. Heaven shouts and angels sing, glory to the risen King. Jesus, you are high above it all. Every power must bow down, every king lay down their crown. Jesus, you are high above it all. Heaven shouts and angels sing, glory to the risen King. Jesus, you are high above it all. 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 King Jesus, be lifted high above it all. You're the Almighty, you're the Almighty. Our praises, our devotion, Jesus, have it all. You're the Almighty, you are the Lord, you are the Lord of all.
It is good news for our hearts that Jesus is not dead in a grave somewhere, but he is high over everything. High over a coronavirus, high over 2020, high over our lives and our businesses and our finances and our family. That's the Jesus that we come to today. We find rest for our souls as we lift our eyes up to him and know all of this is under his kindness, his goodness, and his grace towards us. That's the Jesus that we worship.
So let me tell you about small groups. Here at Emmanuel, we are a church with over 1,000 members, and the way we stay connected is we meet with little groups of us across the city to stay together, build friendship, build our connections with Jesus, build our hobbies, and that isn't stopping over this season. We've been meeting digitally up until this point, and we have a new term of these small groups starting. Yes, we have a bonus summer term, and you can sign up to this as of now. Sign-ups are open on our website. Thank you. There is a huge list of the different groups. We have over 60 of these, and they run from vegan cooking to beach walks to beers in gardens to a youth group to so many different varieties that you can get yourself involved in as a way of doing something you love, meeting with people you love, and really getting stuck in to life with people again, as it's felt a bit odd over these last few months. Some of these are continuing to run digitally, and some of them are moving to being outside so you can actually meet with people. For those of you who have been shielding and maybe still have to be, we want to extra encourage you to join those small groups that are meeting digitally. I know some people who are in that position, and I know for some it's a case of desperate to get out there and be with people, and for others it's starting to become a bit of a safe space. And for both of those people in those situations, we just want to encourage you to come in and join these small groups and continue to be part of a bunch of people who love you very, very much. You can sign up to these on our website, www.weareemmanuel.com/small groups. Arnold, there's a lot going on with the student work, I understand, in small groups as well.
Yeah, that's right. So like I said previously, we're a group, a community that are trying to grow together. And we've provided opportunities basically, because I know students are all over, not only the country, but literally all over the world. So we provided opportunity for students to be able to meet digitally, online, whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey. You can find groups on worshipping together. You can find groups for creatives, groups that are just for guys, groups that are just for girls. Whoever you are more than welcome to join wherever you are, because there will be something for you. On top of that, actually, if you're kind of looking into the faith, there's something called Alpha. And Alpha is a small group where everyone joins. It doesn't have to be students. Whoever you are, you can join. And it's a safe space for you to hear a little bit about Christianity and then break off into rooms and then discuss all the questions and thoughts that you have over life, over faith, and really go in to see what Christianity is all about. Yeah? If that is you, I would definitely recommend that you join that. You can go to weareemmanuel.com/alpha to find out more information.
Fantastic. You know, when we look in this Bible and we see what Jesus did, he gathered people together. And we look at the church, the early church, like the first church in the world, they met all together, which obviously we can't quite do right now apart from digitally, but they met in homes, they met in small little groups. Let me encourage you, life is done so much better with other people. Don't just be a lone ranger. I know it's been nice just to have just a bit more time at home with family, but as lockdown restrictions are easing, why don't you make a connection with 2 or few people in your city around you? Well, about 2 weeks ago, as a church, we put out a new single, a song called "A Come to the Altar," and that's available streaming across all devices now, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, you find it on YouTube. Why did we release that particular song? What I love about "O Come to the Altar," which was actually written by a church in America, we love this song. Why? Because it connects with the humanity and weakness. It connects with just normal life, and it says, leave behind your sins and regrets. It talks about your burdens and the way, you know, everybody, if we're honest with ourselves, we know what it is to feel weak, to have regrets and mistakes in our lives. But it's not just a song that says, come on, pull yourself together, you know, you believe in yourself. No, it's a gospel-centered song. It says Jesus is calling, and it says forgiveness is bought with the precious blood of Jesus, and the Father's arms are open wide. And if you've got regrets, mistakes, you're feeling burdened by stresses of life, you know, the message of this Bible isn't, come on, just try harder. No, it's come to Jesus, this person again. So we're going to play this song. It was released a couple of weeks ago. It's available to stream all across digital platforms. But right now, let's bring our hearts back to Jesus. Let's sing, "O Come to the Altar." Hey, now's the point in this service where we give an opportunity if you'd like to give a financial offering, a love offering, a trust offering. Let's going to read from 2 Corinthians to help us with this. It says in 2 Corinthians 9, verse 6, the point is this: whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, but whoever sows bountifully will reap bountifully. Each one must give as he has made up his mind, not reluctantly or under compulsion. Don't you love that? The Bible says that. Don't give reluctantly or under compulsion, in the sense of, oh, I should or I better give. No, that's not what the Bible says at all. It says, for God loves a cheerful giver. God's after our hearts of joy. So this isn't a religion thing. It goes on to say, verse 8, God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work. He can make all grace abound to us, even in coronavirus, even with financial uncertainties. He's able to just abundantly make his grace and provision real in our lives. So many of you I know give online. You can text give, look at the number below. Whatever amount you feel in your heart, cheerfully give to him, not under compulsion. If you're just looking in, you're a guest here, please, no pressure to give whatsoever. We don't want your money, we want you to meet Jesus. That's the most important thing. But today marks the beginning of something new. Nay, tell us.
Yes, it does. We have a new preaching series starting today called Parables, which is about the stories that Jesus told when he was here on this earth. Matt Carville, one of our elders, is going to be in this very room to speak to us today. We're really pleased. We've had wonderful video recorded, talks given to us over the last few months, but thanks to the lockdown laws, moving on, Matt's going to be here with us, which is great. Just want to say, if there's anything that comes up in this preach that kind of pulls on your heart or just feels like something's speaking to you, there is a prayer room online available where there's people here waiting to speak to you and pray for you by that medium. So that link will be up later. But before all of that, we're going to hear the scripture that we're going to be speaking from today.
That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the lake, and great crowds gathered about him, so that he got into a boat and sat down. And the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell along the path, and the birds came and devoured them. Other seeds fell on rocky ground, where they did not have much soil, and immediately they sprang up, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched. And since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and produced grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. He who has ears, let him hear. He put another parable before them, saying, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared also. And the servants of the master of the house came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have weeds? He said to them, an enemy has done this. So the servant said to him, then do you want us to go and gather them? But he said, no. Lest in gathering the weeds, you root up the wheat along with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And at the harvest time, I will tell the reapers, gather the weeds first, and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn.
How do you tell a good story? I get a lot of practice at this because every night my son, before he goes to sleep, as well as the books from his bookshelf that he wants me to read, he also wants me to tell what he calls a talking story. He wants to hear a story he's never heard before. And this coming up with a new story every single night is quite a toll on my creative abilities, especially since every single story has to exclusively include just the characters from the film Frozen 2. About 2,000 years ago, crowds gathered around Jesus, and they too wanted to hear something they'd never heard before. And Jesus responded by telling parables. In fact, a third of the recorded teaching of Jesus in the Gospels is parables. Obviously, Jesus knew the impact of a good story. But how do you tell a good one? Where would you start? Well, let's try, shall we? Once upon a time, there was a man. Okay, that's not a good way to start because that's too vague. There's no detail there. How about this then? Once upon a time, there was a politician. Now that's better because we've got some detail there. We've got something that's familiar to people, but it's not very dynamic. Let's make him do something. Once upon a time, there was a politician who made a speech. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We've got a character, we've got a setting, but a really good story is going to grab attention. So maybe let's take this idea of giving a speech and twist it a bit. Okay, how about this then? Once upon a time, there was a politician who was honest. Now, that's a more interesting start to a story. It taps into something that is below the surface. Yes, we've got something that's familiar, we've got some detail there, but we also have an idea that provokes a little bit. You see, for some of you, I say that and you're thinking, yeah, politicians, they're not honest. I want to hear you roast these politicians. And for others of you, you might be thinking, well, actually, a lot of politicians are honest and they're trying to do a good job. So that's not very respectful to talk of them in that way and poke fun at them. But that's the point. A good story is going to provoke a reaction. And Jesus knew this, and Jesus told these parables using things that were familiar to people, but also brought in a way that brings challenge and taps into the values of society, the unwritten rules of society, perhaps. And these stories were so effective, they're still around today, even if outside a church. Everyone has heard of the Good Samaritan, for example. They're not just good stories, they touch on real life issues. Jesus uses the parables to provoke a response. And what Jesus is doing is he's taking us from the everyday to the eternal. Jesus used parables to talk about the kingdom of heaven. Now, if you were with us back way before lockdown, we were in a series called Paradox, and we were looking at the Gospel of Matthew and the way in which Jesus presented this idea of the kingdom of heaven, often using seemingly conflicting ideas and revealing through them a deeper truth. And the point that we got up to in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 13, is where we're picking up right now and continuing on, because Jesus continues that idea of teaching about the kingdom of heaven, and he uses these parables. So I hope you can join us as we go through. And each week we'll be looking at what we can learn more about this kingdom of heaven. But before we dive into the parables for today, you might be thinking, well, okay, but how is this relevant to the challenges that we are facing? We've just come out of a series talking about Noah, where there's a worldwide crisis. The parallels are maybe more obvious there. But what this kingdom of heaven, it seems very mystical and not tangible. How is this helping us with what we face day by day? Well, that's a good question. But to answer that question, I want to direct our attention to the context that Jesus was speaking into. You see, as these crowds gathered around Jesus, they were a people who had an appetite for change. They were a people who were oppressed. The Jews were occupied by the Roman Empire. And they were also a people who were expectant and hoping of a brighter future. And for them, this idea of the kingdom of heaven was what their hopes were wrapped up in. So let me ask you, do you want change? Do you want a reason to hope in these dark times? Do you want to make sense of a messed up world? Do you want reasons to believe in a brighter future? The thing was, the people in Jesus' day were right. What they needed to answer those types of questions was the kingdom of heaven. What we'll see is they didn't quite get it. But actually, the kingdom of heaven for them and for us is exactly what we need. And Jesus has come to bring that to us. And so I hope you can stay with us for this series through these summer months as we unpack exactly why that is. Why do we need this kingdom of heaven? What does it speak to us today? Let's focus in on these first couple of parables. First, I want to focus on what Jesus is saying and then what it means for us. In both parables, you have the sower who sows seeds. Now, Jesus is pointing to himself there. Jesus is the sower. The seed is the message of Jesus, the gospel of Jesus, the good news of what Jesus has done and who he is. Jesus saying is that he is the king who has come into the world to establish his kingdom. But the way he's done it is not with force and law. Actually, surprisingly, the way that Jesus establishes his kingdom is through sacrifice. He's the king that comes into the world and dies for his subjects, in order that people like you and me can be forgiven by God, reconciled to God, brought back to God. And also he's the king that vindicates himself by rising from the dead to show his authority even over sin and death. And so by embracing this gospel, that's how we enter into the kingdom of heaven. Now, also in both parables, we have a sense of soil. The seed hits the ground and it causes an effect. And what Jesus is talking about there is individual lives, individual hearts. In the first parable, the parable of the sower, Jesus is contrasting different ways his message will be received. Some people have room for Jesus. Other people have different priorities, and there's no room for Jesus to take root. In the second parable, similar idea, we've got wheat growing up, but we also, in the same field, have weeds as well. And this is really where we get into this idea of the paradox, these conflicting ideas. Jesus' kingdom is one that seems to emerge in and through an existing broken kingdom. In both parables, we have the seed going in a hostile environment. Jesus enters the world, and surprisingly, not everything is put right straight away. That doesn't mean it won't be put right in the end, but he's establishing his kingdom through the brokenness that already exists. And an individual Christian receives that in the same way. If you receive Christ, not everything in your life gets sorted straight away, but something begins to grow. Jesus has entered into your heart and begins to grow and establish his kingdom within you. So Jesus' kingdom is not one that is obvious. And that's why he ends by saying, if you have ears, then hear. You need to listen. You need to pay attention. And also in both parables, what we have is a sense of outcome. In the first one, Jesus is talking about fruitfulness. And in the second one, we have a sense of judgment. The wheat and the weeds grow up together and what's going to happen at the end. And what he's expressing there is God judges, that's true, but he judges success not on whether we've established our own kingdom, but whether we've received this Jesus. We've received his gospel, the good news, into our hearts. And the question of these parables is, will you receive Jesus? So we've seen there that the way that we enter the kingdom of heaven is by receiving Christ. But also what I want to say this morning is that with this kingdom, it's an inside-out kingdom. Inner transformation occurs before external transformation. You see, what do I mean by that? The people of Jesus' day, they were pointing to many different social problems that they were facing. What were they? Oppression, injustice, poverty, inequality. Funnily enough, they're the same things that we are facing today as well. And they would say, right, these are the things that need sorted out. But then Jesus comes into the world and announces this kingdom of heaven, and people are flocking to him to see what he has to say. But the way in which Jesus addresses the problems is unexpected. Jesus starts talking about love your enemies, turn the other cheek. Pray for those who persecute you. What? The Romans, the people who were oppressing us, we're supposed to love them? You see, what Jesus is showing us is that his kingdom is an inside-out kingdom. It starts with what goes on inside the heart before it goes and works its way to the external problems in the world. He doesn't start outside in. Jesus doesn't come into the world and have a program of social restructuring. He doesn't come with a plan of economic stimulus. He doesn't come in by force or change laws. Instead, Jesus comes in and he tells stories. And he says, no, you have to receive me in your hearts. That's what this is about. And you might think, well, this is classic Bible. A spiritual truth all about internal things. That's no real practical use. Okay, well, hold on there. Because what actually history shows us is that actually this method is very effective. You see, these crowds that gathered to Jesus, they didn't actually get what he was on about. They understood the stories on a surface level, but actually these crowds, at first they were fascinated with Jesus, and then they started to drift away. Then they were apathetic with Jesus, and by the end of Jesus' life, they were hostile to Jesus. I guess they had been disappointed with what he had to say, so much so that they were the ones who were shouting, "Crucify him," at the end of Jesus' life. But the people who were closest to Jesus, his disciples, they were the ones that Jesus made extra sure they got these secrets of the kingdom. He made sure that they received him in their hearts. He says to Peter, "Do you love me?" He's ensuring that the deposit that he leaves with him is going to have an effect. It's going to cause fruitfulness. And that's what we see. Jesus dies on the cross. Jesus rises again. Jesus ascends back into heaven. What happens next? The explosion of the church, empowered by the Spirit in the first century, the Christian faith explodes. These disciples of Jesus, these simple people, they turned the world upside down. History is different because of what Jesus deposited in this small band of followers. What the crowds wanted to achieve by force, the overthrow of the Romans, the vindication of them as a people, actually, in a few generations, Jesus achieves through redeeming love. That's what happens in history. In just a few generations, this Roman Empire becomes Christian. You see what happens? The kingdom is at work in hearts, and it works from the inside out, and it redeems, and it restores, and it changes from the inside out. That is the way Jesus brings about his kingdom. What starts as a seed in a heart can change the course of global history. That's the kingdom of heaven. So what does that mean for us then? Jesus is transforming the world. It's not what it will be, but he is at work, and he's changing the world one heart at a time. That's good news for us. This same Jesus who comes into the disciples' hearts and redeems them. This same Jesus who redeems even something like an empire by the power of his Spirit. If he can redeem the disciples, if he can redeem empires, he can redeem you. The kingdom of heaven is within you. He who has ears, let him hear. Are you listening? Are you attuned to what Jesus wants to do in you? If you've received Christ, this power is in you right now. What is he restoring in your life? What is he redeeming in your life? What is he transforming in your life? That is the work of the kingdom. If you've received Christ, you have the kingdom. It is growing. That is happening. You see, even as Christians, sometimes we're not aware of this, because like in this second parable, we are so aware of the weeds growing up beside us. Maybe we're focused on the brokenness of the world. Or maybe we're focused on the brokenness in us, our personal shortcomings, our sin, our disappointment. But when we're focused on that, we might lose sight of what Jesus is and can and will do in us. Listen, if you have received Christ, you have received this kingdom of heaven already. You have received the life of God in you, a life with purpose and meaning that casts a whole new way of looking at life because you have the power of God by the Spirit in you. A life of supernatural potential, a life of miracles, a life of answered prayer, a life of healing, a life of adventure. That is what Jesus has promised. That is what Jesus has come into your heart to bring about. Coming to Jesus is not an intellectual exercise. It's bringing in, Jesus brings in by the Spirit the kingdom of heaven that grows and causes fruitfulness. Don't you want that type of life? You have that type of life, but are you attuned to what the Spirit is doing in you? Because Jesus says this fruitfulness is something that I am promising you. He says, if you receive me in your heart, you will have fruitfulness 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold. Jesus hasn't come into the world and come into your heart just for the potential of fruitfulness. No, he's come in with the promise of fruitfulness. It's not all about you getting everything right and having the most perfect skills and abilities and things to offer. It's about having the life of God within you. It will cause fruitfulness. He is doing it in you and through you, and he will cause you to be an agent of change in the world by first what he is doing in your life and in your heart. It is fruitfulness. It's not fruitfulness as the world regards it. The world values the fruitfulness of wealth, of success, of popularity. Jesus doesn't promise those things. But Jesus said, if you receive me, you will have the fruit that my kingdom brings. What's that? It's the fruit of the Spirit. Galatians 5. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. These are not things that we aspire to. Oh, as a good Christian, I really need to have more patience in my life. I'm going to try really hard. No, that's the wrong way around. It's as we receive Christ, as we receive Christ day by day, as we receive him through his word, as we press in the place of prayer, as we follow him in obedience, and we receive more and more of Christ and his kingdom, and we're attuned to what he's doing in our lives, these things, these qualities spring up. They are fruit of that kind of orientation of our hearts. Has Christ come into your life? Is there room for him to take root? These things will grow. They don't happen overnight, but as we daily receive Christ more and more, we will see this fruitfulness come up and be agents of change in the world as he changes our hearts and as he changes our lives. That's what we have if we have received Christ. For some watching this, maybe you've not yet received Christ. Maybe like in the first parable, in your heart there's other priorities perhaps. Maybe there's pain and difficulty. There may be this circumstance that make it difficult for you to trust in God and receive Christ. Maybe there's distractions. Jesus is telling us this parable today because he wants us to make this good decision. He wants us to make room in our hearts for him. What is this parable saying to us? It's saying the kingdom of heaven is near. My only hope through preaching this morning is that as I'm saying these things and talking about the kingdom of heaven, that the Spirit is at work in your heart and is knocking on the door of your heart saying, you need this. You need this, Jesus. You need this kingdom that causes fruitfulness. You can spend your whole life trying to build your own kingdom, but it's not an eternal kingdom. It'll just be burned up. It'll count for nothing. Jesus offers, receive him and receive a fruitfulness that will last forever. But this kingdom comes personally. It comes individually. You're not going to see the kingdom of heaven talked about on the TV debate shows. It's not written in the sky. The government's not going to have a daily briefing about it. It's not big like that. It's personal. It's individual. He comes to you by the witness of his Spirit and say, you need this kingdom of heaven. Come and receive him today. That's the question. Will you receive Christ today? Will the seed of the gospel, Christ himself, find root in your heart? Is there room for him? Can he become a priority? He must be a priority if he is to come into your heart. And if so, if you do receive him, if you have received him, then this kingdom will bring about fruitfulness in your life that you can never imagine. Don't you want that? Don't you want that? You can have that today by embracing Jesus and saying yes to him and saying, come into my heart today. I want to encourage us to do that. Let's embrace Jesus today, perhaps for the first time, perhaps for the 100th time. Allow him to find good soil in your heart today and unleash this potential, this promise of the kingdom of heaven in you. There's going to be an opportunity in a few moments to respond personally to Jesus in this way. But I want us to all respond together by worshiping this Jesus. And so we're going to sing again now. Megan is going to lead us.
What gift of grace is Jesus my Redeemer? There is no more for heaven now to give. He is my joy, my righteousness and freedom, my steadfast love, my deep and boundless peace. To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus, for my life is wholly bound to His. Oh, how strange and divine, I can sing, all is mighty and not I, but through Christ in me. The night is dark, but I am not forsaken. For by my side, the Savior, He will stay. I labor on in weakness and rejoicing, for in my need, His power is displayed. To this I hold, my shepherd will defend me. Through the deepest valley He will lead. Oh, the night has been won, and I shall overcome, yet not I, but through Christ in me. No fate I dread, I know I am forgiven. The future sure, the price it has been paid. For Jesus bled and suffered for my pardon, and He was raised to overthrow the grave. To this I hold, my sin has been defeated. Jesus now and ever is my plea. Oh, the chains are released, I can sing, I am free, and not I, but through Christ in me. With every breath, I long to follow Jesus, for He has said that He will bring me home. And day by day, I know He will renew me until I stand with joy before the throne. To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus. All the glory evermore to Him. When the race is complete, still my lips
seeds of the gospel come to our heart. It starts in the heart. We receive Jesus into our heart. He who has ears, she who has ears, let them hear. Don't block out God's voice to you today. Jesus is wanting to come to your heart, to bring himself to you, not just some things about him, to bring himself to you. Let this be a week together that we walk closer to this person of Jesus.
Yeah, like he has done today, God speaks to us through scriptures, and we have people who can explain that to us. Also, we have some friends and pastors within our church who sense his voice and hear him speaking to them for other people. And we feel that he has a couple of specific things that he wants to say today. They've been messaging them in to us so we can share them with you for some individual people who he wants to speak to today. The first thing here is that somebody has been persistently asking God to speak, but perhaps they're listening with selective hearing. God is speaking, and he wants you to retune your ear and listen to the fullness and the truth of what he's saying to you. The second thing that we've been sent here is that somebody may be in a situation where they want to make amends with somebody, but they just don't know how to, especially in the climate that we're in. And God wants to he wants you to know that he sees that, he knows you, and he can and wants to give freedom to your heart and closure to this situation. And there is still a way for this to be made whole in Jesus. So if either of those to you, Arnold, where do we go with those from here?
Yeah, so, if that has resonated with you, you don't need to just hold that and leave that there. There's actually an opportunity for, we have pastors and other leaders that are happy to pray for you. And we would love to pray for you. I'm actually going to be there as well. Just head on over after this to weareemmanuel.com/online prayer. And there'll be somebody waiting to get beside you and support you. Even if this is not got anything to do with what's just been said, you please join, and you have something burdening your heart. We would love to pray for you, whoever you are.
Do tune in to online prayer if that is you. Any issues, anything that's come up, any questions about Christianity, or you just need someone, as Arnold said, to come alongside and just to bring some nice, just truth and to pray for you, do that. We're coming right to the end of this online stream. A couple of things. Firstly, to our youth of the city, I know that Emmanuel Youth right now, they're about to go live on Instagram. If you haven't done it yet, do check in. It's very funny. There's a whole lot of young people going live, all kinds of crazy games, different stuff. So head over there if you are like under 18, or in your teens, go over there. Last thing I want to say is this. Some musicians, worship leaders and songwriters across the country got together to record a song at Abbey Road about injustice. And we're re-releasing it this Sunday at midday today, so literally in an hour's time, about the topic of racial injustice. Obviously, this has been a big topic over the last 6 weeks or so, and now we're moving into July and summer's coming, we're moving on. Friends, let us not forget this is such an important issue, and it's something that Jesus cares about and he died for. Racial coming together, the reconciling of all people in his church. So I just want to encourage you, if you haven't done yet, please keep the conversation alive. This is a great time for us as a community. We're all understanding and learning just how racial inequality works and how deep it goes, even not of understanding it. There's a lot to understand. Let's keep being those who listen with the intent to understand. But we're going to end the stream now just with this video. We're going to stay online on the online chat for a bit, so we'd love to say hi. Do drop a few comments if you're still here. But let's finish with this great song that's recorded. It says, somebody please, somebody listen. Let these songs, these words move you. Let them point you back to Jesus, and let Jesus move our hearts as we go on to our city, our livelihood, our workplaces this week. Let's bring the love of Christ to the people around us. Big goodbye from us here in Central Brighton. We'll stay on the live chat. We'll see you soon. Enjoy the video. Bye-bye.
Calls for help have turned to tears, so can you hear me now?
Been standing here watching people pass like they can't see me now. When I'm trying to get hope back in my heart, but I just don't know how.
Somebody please.
If I only had a voice
That would speak for me with love. just I don't care how much you know till I know how much you care.
And there's only so much love that I'm capable of bearing.
Hear my voice, be my justice.
Somebody come, somebody please.
Somebody come to my rescue. Somebody come.
Somebody please.
Somebody pray for me.
Somebody come.
Somebody please.
Help me.
I can't cry no more. Somebody, please help me.
If I only had a chance to afford the remedy,
I would never leave the dance.
I would celebrate life constantly. If you gave me the unknown, you won't find it worth your while.
And you may never change the whole world.
That you truly saved my life. Hear my voice, be my justice. I'm a witness to this crisis. Rescue me, Lord, I need this. Somebody come,
Somebody please.
somebody come to my rescue. Somebody come, somebody please. Somebody pray for me. Oh,
Somebody come. Somebody please. Somebody come to my rescue.
you can make a difference.
You can change my circumstance.
You can make it possible.
The dream I've been dreaming is real.
Can you feel my heart?
Hear my voice.
Be my justice. Oh.
Somebody come. Somebody please.
Somebody come to my rescue. Somebody come.
Somebody please.
Somebody pray for me. We can hear the voice of a dying child. We can hear the sound of the wounded cry. And it's with one voice we will sing a new song. And it's with one voice we will right what's wrong. Somebody come. Somebody please.
Somebody come to my rescue.
We need your love. Jesus, we're calling on you. You promised me life.
You're my justice, right now.
Shelter for the home. Oh, we need you. I can't cry no more.
Ooh.
We need you. We need you.
What gift of grace is Jesus my Redeemer? There is no more for heaven now to give. He is my joy, my righteousness and freedom, my steadfast love, my deep and boundless peace. To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus. For my life is wholly bound to His. Oh, how strange and divine! I can sing holy night, yet not I, but through Christ in me. Jesus bled and suffered for my pardon, and he was raised to overthrow the grave. To this I hold, my sin has been defeated. Jesus now and ever is my plea. Oh, the chains are released. I can sing. I am free, yet not I, but through Christ in me. Sing with every breath. With every breath, I long to follow Jesus, for he has said that he will bring me home. And day by day, I know he will renew me until I stand with joy before the throne. To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus. All the glory evermore to him. When the race is complete, still my name's shine through, yet not I, but through Christ in me. When the race is complete, still my name's shall repeat, yet not I, but through Christ in me. Yet not I, but through Christ in me. Yet not I, but through Christ in me.
I ain't got much time, can I count on you? You're the only hope I can hold on to. Closer to the line, but I know it's true. You're the only one who can pull me through. Take hold, take hold, take hold. Take hold of my heart, shape it how you want. Take hold of my heart, shape it how you want. I've been far from faith, now I'm coming home. Learn the hard way, I can walk alone. Falling down again,